Welcome to Horribly Wrong Comic Book Origins, where a non-comic fan takes a crack at a classic comic tale. Today's origin is Superman.
Well, I'm glad you asked about Superman because, of course, this is one of the most famous stories in the entire history of comic books. Greg, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight about where Superman came from. I know you're really into him, but I don't think you know the entire story. So
I don't think you. This is like the one that no one's going to be able. Everyone knows the story of Superman.
Well, in case you're confused, let me catch you up. There's a planet around the binary star Sirius, about 40 light years away. It's called Kryptonia. And Kryptonia is under, it has for hundreds of years has been a civil war, a global civil war. And it basically all comes to a head when the planet is destroyed by an aerial bombardment. And this creates ejecta. Greg, you're familiar with ejecta, right?
Sure, it's something spiraling off the planet, like a piece of the planet. Why in an aerial civil war would you blow up your own planet?
Well, because they had somewhere else to live at this point, Greg. They had hundreds of years to find a new planet. So the ejecta is sprouted off. This is hundreds of thousands of years ago, by the way, in Earth time. And the ejecta shoots away at about 30,000 miles an hour, hurtles through space. And it just so happens that on one of these pieces of ejecta is the person who will become Superman. But we don't know his name yet. We don't know anything.
Why don't we know his name?
Well, because we can't speak that language, Greg. We don't really know anything about what happened on this
Seems
planet.
like a boring part. So like the pages of this story are just jibber jabber that doesn't make any sense in the word book.
Well, we can retcon it later, Greg, but right now, what we're focused on is this man hurtling through space. And about 10,000 years ago, Greg, in what would become Missouri, a meteor crashes. And our friend Superman is in this meteor. Now, you've seen Encino Man, so you're familiar with the man in the ice?
Pauly Shore, Brendan Fraser, who hasn't seen Encino Man.
Right, exactly. So Superman is encased in ice, very similar to Encino Man, because he's been hurtling through space, a vacuum about 4 degrees Kelvin, very cold, Greg. Now,
incredibly cold. Now,
the meteor strikes Missouri. Nothing happens for about 10,000 years. In 1932, during the height of the Great Depression, a potato farmer named Bobby Kent.
Potatoes in Missouri.
Right.
That's what, okay.
Yeah, so a potato farmer named Bobby Kent is kind of tilling his farm. Now, Greg, I don't know what you know about agriculture, but you kind of have to switch and swap crops every once in a while, right? So Bobby doesn't do this. He continues to grow potatoes, and so the soil is becoming not good. He's got to till it. He's got to kind of dig it up. And when he's digging the soil up in 1932, he comes across this man in ice. This is very similar to Encino Man. This might have actually inspired Encino Man.
Okay.
And so he digs this man up. He melts him, and it's a boy. It's a teenage boy. And this is, of course, the story of Superboy. But that's really not very interesting because at this point, Superboy doesn't really have any powers. We don't really know about his powers yet.
So this is Boy. This is the story of Boy.
Well, his friends really liked him. He was actually really good at baseball, so they called him Superboy. He was a great athlete. So this was the story of Superboy. So Superman is dug up out of the ground. He's raised by Bobby Kent. Bobby names him Clark after his grandfather, actually, who was also a potato farmer, but a potato farmer in Ireland. And so he grows up kind of a normal life in Missouri and then goes to Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish.
Sure.
And he studies journalism. And
okay, so he's in Missouri, home of the greatest journalism school in the country. And he decides to go for the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame.
Well, as you know, Missouri doesn't have a great football team then or now. So he wants to go play some football at Notre Dame. And it's at Notre Dame when he kind of starts running into some troubles. He meets a dude named Lex Luthor there at the University of Notre Dame. And him and Lex have some problems or whatever. And it's really there that he starts to kind of figure out his own origin story and his own strength. And it's at that point that he becomes Superman.
Okay. A lot wrong with that. Of course, everyone knows the origin story of Superman, but I mean, nice try. You did your best there. Of course, Krypton explodes, sends him in a rocket ship, not encased in ice. You know why Krypton explodes? It changes every time they do the story. Maybe it's Brainiac, maybe they're mining, whatever.
Aerial bombardment.
No, lands in Smallville, Kansas. Gets found by the Kents, not single father potato farmer, Mr. Kent, Jonathan Kent, Martha Kent, named Clark because Martha's maiden name, Martha Clark Kent. But that's also something that gets twisted around with there in the history. You know, they make it up as they go. Then he goes to the Daily Planet / Daily Star nowadays. So you were not very close.
No, I think you're wrong.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Click here to watch Captain America's origin. Click here to watch Colin and Greg discuss who would win in a fight. Click here to see the boys tackle The Last of Us.